Thank you very much, calling our Dr. Nanda Vrindavan Masaji. Yes, to your all-enveloping, spiritually elevated home. And thank you everyone for coming over. Although people are driving around the various freeways and not so fast either. They're all headed for some destination. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yanti deva bratav devan pitran yati pratirvata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti mam yajinopim. Souls have some independence, they can go wherever they want. Unless people know that the highest interest and the greatest pleasure of life is to come towards Krishna. Or, in the case of Rath-yatra, to bring Krishna back towards us. Then they're destined to drive on many freeways, many different universes. Therefore, Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. Until someone gets mercy from Krishna and Guru, understands science of Krishna consciousness, and they're wandering. As Akrura said in his prayers on his way to Vrindavan, before he met Krishna, bring him back to Mathura. The living entities are like logs. They're floating perpetually on a river, no resting place. But sometime they may come to the shore, he said. Those who are here in Silicon Valley physically, but whose minds are in Jagannath Puri today are greatly fortunate. And those who live in Silicon Valley, but they make their homes into Jagannath Puri are very fortunate. Anyone who comes in contact with the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very fortunate, because such people, although in barren places in the world, can come to know the joy of the pastimes of the Lord. And then they no longer live in the material world. Iha yasya hṛd-rogam karmanam saragita nikama yasya vastastu jivan mukta savichate. Śrīmad Gosvāmī includes this in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that those who live in a material body and live in the material world, iha, it's here, but they're engaged in devotional service. They're liberated even while in this body. Real liberation means to be conscious of Krishna and one's relationship with Krishna. And it's not that Krishna keeps himself invisible. He's fully visible. Those who have visited the holy dhams in India, that have been there since time immemorial, know Krishna's fully available to anyone who wants to go and see him. In fact, if you took a few years off from Intel or Salesforce to say, just give me paid leave for 3 years. I'm gonna go to the dhams. You would not come to the end of it. There are so many dhams in India. You could go, even in one city, you could come to the end of visiting all the temples. In Vrindavan alone, there's 5,000 temples. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted that there be temples all over the world. And here we are in one of them. And I don't even know where we are. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea. And I grew up in the Bay Area because I never drove this far before. The Rath-yatra pastime is one of the most intimate of all pastimes and indicative of the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. In fact, chapter 13 of the Madhya Lila is the same as chapter 82, 10th canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, because they're both describing the pastime of separation that the residents of Vrindavan endured after Akrura had come to Vrindavan and told Krishna and Balaram about Kamsa's plan, an elephant, wrestlers. It was a matter of intrigue that he wanted to kill Krishna and Balaram. They had a hearty laugh there at the house of Nanda Maharaj. And they were entertaining Uncle Akura, giving him refreshments, and he washed his feet and gave him a massage and made sure he was okay after the long journey. He had brought a chariot that was brand new because Krishna had arranged to have a brand new chariot by his inconceivable internal potencies. He would not be appropriate for him to have ridden on one of Kamsa's already a used car. He's driving used cars. And Akura told him the plan, and as the word spread throughout Vrindavan, the rumors that Krishna might be leaving, the devotees felt as if they were about to lose their lives, especially for the gopīs of Vrindavan, who you may have seen paintings. It's in Toronto, Canada, and Temple, they have a series of paintings that will match, same artist. One of them is of Akura driving his chariot with Krishna and Balaram to Mathura. But the gopīs have entangled themselves in the spokes of the wheels of the big chariot. They would rather die and see Krishna leave. The only thing that kept them alive was Krishna said, "Oh, back." 3 days, and then for 100 years. 3 days from Monday, 3 days from Tuesday, 3 days from Thursday were calculated for over 100 years after Krishna left, as described in the nectar of devotion, Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, that practically they had shriveled up faces of the residents of Vrindavan were constantly wet with tears. And we know also during that time when they were pining in separation, Krishna had sent Uddhava as a messenger to come to Vrindavan and read his message to the gopīs. That time, Krishna had said something inscrutable in his message. Uddhava had read to the gopīs, which was, "I'm all pervading. You can perceive me within and without. I'm in every atom. It's also reside in your heart. We're never separated." This kind of knowledge for the gopīs was ludicrous. And at the same time, Uddhava came to see the mood of the residents of Vrindavan, especially the gopīs, during that time. Messenger B, the B comes and Śrīmati Radharani engages in what our acharyas describe as the utmost pinnacle, the pinnacle of devotional ecstasies. In her madness, she speaks to the bee in various ways. You are an unreliable servant, unreliable master, tells the bee, and it flies off. And then she panics because she thinks it's going to go back to Krishna and report that she's spoken these harsh words. And no, please come back. And the bee comes back. She again speaks to the bee. Uddhava's noticing all this. Bandena Nebradashjina Padarina Vibhishna Yasam Aikatu. Kunati Bhuvanatrayam. He comes to realize that the topmost of all the devotees are there in Vrindavan. He wants to take the dust from their feet. He wants to stay in Vrindavan as a plant somewhere along the arc, where when these gopīs are walking, somehow dust from their feet might float down and land on his head, form of a plant. And that way, he says, I'll be purified. Punati Bhuvanatrayam, 3 worlds are purified by the Katha, hearing about these great devotees. So Krishna goes to Mathura, kills many demons there, including Kamsa, And then Jarasandha attacks 17 times, and 18 times Krishna runs away, apparently. Kalyavana came at the same time, so it seemed like overwhelming force, although he had obliterated forces of Jarasandha 17 times with no problem at all. Even with a smaller army, he went away. And he also moved all the residents of Mathura to Dwarka. That time in the middle of the night, they were sleeping. He transferred them for their protection to the fortress in the sea called Dwarka. They woke up in gilded rooms and palaces transferred by Krishna there. During that time in Dwarka, we know from the Bhagavatamrita, it's described how there were talks among some of the devotees of Krishna. During his sleep, he'd be calling out the names of various of his devotees, the gopīs, Vrindavan in separation. His pillow, where he slept on a royal bed, as a prince, was soaked with his tears. And there had been a scheme there by the director of Narada Muni, to create another Vrindavan right there in order to assuage Krishna's intense feelings of separation and so forth. So this is the backdrop of the Rath Yatra festival, is the intensity that it developed in Krishna's leaving Vrindavan and the separation in the hearts of all of the devotees there that ensued. Normally, just somebody leaves, goes away, and time goes by and people move on. It's natural. Sometimes people are pledge their love forever, and a few years later, they don't see their beloved. Somehow they move on. But after 100 years plus, the gopis had not moved on, nor had Nanda, Shoda, of course, nor the cowherd boys, nor any of Krishna's friends. Their only meditation every day was when will Krishna come back. And of course, Krishna had a mission. He was playing his part of paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chatuskrita, mostly killing demons. Prabhupada mentions in a lecture he did more killing, almost more killing than love. Too many demons to kill. Because as we know from the very first chapter of the Krishna book, there was a build-up, unnecessary force of demons on the planet Earth, and Krishna had vowed to come and cut them down. And he was especially concerned with protecting the residents of Vrindavan. He had gone away from there. He felt if he went back there, it would draw attention to Vrindavan. So he stayed away, he killed the demons. He sent a note back with Uddhava. And then there was a mela to take place in Kurukshetra, in the eclipse of the sun. It was coming soon and was, of course, a pilgrimage place. It's time immemorial. The Yadus had gone there for generations to perform sacrifice. Parashuram had been there, purify himself after his annihilation of the Kshatriya class who had been cheaters at the time, so he killed them. And Krishna came there with millions of soldiers, ornamented elephants. Elephants are hard to maintain. Hastinapur, it's named for elephants. Everyone can afford it. Now, if you can get a Tesla, that's big. Try feeding an elephant every day. They had millions of them. So the opulence of those times. But the description of the march. Really? It happened last night too. I was talking and Siri volunteered information. So with elephants, infantry, soldiers, horses, marching from Dwarka, but to speak of sages coming from various parts of the universe to come to the Mela, it's not unreasonable, as we know now in India, when the Kumbh Mela takes place, people really show up. Millions and millions of people came to the Kumbh Mela this year, last year, this year. This year, yeah, it was in April. Done? Yeah, January. And so in that same way, people, of course, Krishna was on the planet, word was there, he'd be there. And word came out to the residents of Vrindavan. So that here was a chance to meet Krishna after all these years. So they had brought their wagons, milk products, and they had made their way there to Kurukshetra. And at the meeting of Kurukshetra, at Kurukshetra, sages were there, people from many parts of India had come, and then residents of Vrindavan came. And this is the stage upon which the pastime of Kurukshetra takes place. And so Jagannath Puri, the temple of Lord Jagannath, represents Dwarka, where Krishna stays with the goddess of fortune. And then for Rath Yatra, he comes out to go to Vrindavan. Says our acharyas, headed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, explain the pastime of Rath Yatra. There's Swakiya and Parakiya moods in the spiritual world. Swakiya means Krishna when he's married and his relationship with the queens in Dwarka. I like that. There are 16,108 wives that he married under various circumstances. Most of them came from they had been kidnapped, and Krishna had rescued them, and then the 8 others they had married under different circumstances. And Swakiya relationship, family, home for each one of them. And then the Parakiya, which is celebrated as the Adi Ras. We hear about this in the very beginning of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. The Ras, called the Adi Ras, the original stimulus for all happiness, is there in the spiritual world between Radha and Krishna, in the topmost of realms in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan. We hear from the Brahma Samhita, Sahasrapata Kamalam Gopulakyam Mahatmadam Dakarnikaram Dhamma. As seen in the picture here, there are many realms. Above Vaikuntha-dham, there's the realm of Goloka-dham, the highest. And within Goloka-dham, there are various divisions. But according to the very refined opinion of our acharyas, Vaikuntha Janito Marupuri Viran Sotsam Vrindaranya Vadana Pani Ramana Tatra Pihodra Radha Namiha Pido Tate Namanta Kuryada Syavirashto Iritate Se. Give this hierarchy of the spiritual world, the spiritual realms. And the highest there is Sri Vrindavan Dham and Radha Kund's, because Radha and Krishna there are engaged in their eightfold daily pastimes. And this is the object of meditation of those who are followers of the Goswāmīs of Vrindavan, which we are followers of the Goswāmīs of Vrindavan in our line, our disciplined line. And their mood there in Vrindavan is unceremonious love. In Vrindavan, the devotees are not fixated on Krishna's godhood. In fact, they're not aware of him. They just know that they love Krishna. The way that they worship Krishna is in a very, according to their relationship with him, it's very natural, like in a village. You have a best friend, friends play together. Sometimes they get in fights, they wrestle, they accuse each other. Sometimes, or once at least, the boys that were playing with Krishna accused Krishna of eating dirt. Said he ate dirt. Went and told Yashoda. Even Balaram came and complained. Yashoda was alarmed, so she called Krishna and said, "Come here, come here. You heard you ate dirt. They're lying. They lie." And of course, she looks at his mouth and demands to see it in his mouth to see if she's eaten dirt. Wants forensic evidence. Sees all the universes, all the energy, sees herself, and she, all right, that's all right. Just don't eat dirt. The mood of madhurya or sweetness there in Vrindavan, it overwhelms the Aishwarya mood of Vaikuntha, where people see, oh, this is God, I should be more reverent. There's no reverence. And amongst the parents of Krishna, they see him as their beloved child. Before they're trying to have children, Nanya and Yashoda having dreams that, oh, we have a child that's more opulent than Narayan. God, that sounds like blasphemy. How can anybody be better than Narayan? That's their family deity. But when Krishna arrives there in their home, ostensibly as a foster child, actually. But we know from our acharyas that actually he was born in both places at the same time. In Vasudeva Krishna that came from Devaki, Vasudeva Krishna merged into, and then Yashoda's son. Yashoda's son there in Vrindavan. And he performed his pastimes just like an ordinary child. And of course, we know all the early pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, how the young gopi girls had prayed that Krishna could become their husband. Krishna performed Vastrapārana Leela and drew everyone's hearts closer and closer to him. So they were completely bound in love. And of course, Krishna's bound in love to the gopis, as described by Kārbhājana Muni in the 11th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, māyā-mṛgaṁ, dayitayepsitam, which is a verse describing Rāmacandra, Lord Caitanya, and Krishna. In the matter of the description of Krishna, māyā-mṛgaṁ says he becomes like a toy, one of those play toys that children have in the hands of the gopis of Vrindavan because they love him so deeply. And Krishna, he was Ajita. He's Ajita, he's unconquerable, but he's conquered by the love of his devotees. That's one of the realizations that Lord Brahmā had after he saw Krishna in Vrindavan. Jñāne, prayāsam, udapāsya, namanta, īvanti, san-mukharitāṁ, bhavadīya-vārtām. Sthāne, sthita, śruti-gatāṁ, tanu-vāṅ, prayāsam, Ajita, that's what takes tri-lokyām. That if one takes this method of worshiping the Lord, following in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan, it's mine. You recognize now. Unless somebody else doesn't like it. Apologies. I pledged one set of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Jñāne prayāsam udapāsya namanta īvanti san-mukharitāṁ bhavadīya-vārtām. When he hears about the interaction of Krishna and his devotees in Vrindavan, Vikrīditam vraja-vadhūbhir shadhanvituna shinariyadata-varna-yadya bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabyakāmam hṛd-rogam ashva hinokta charina-dhira. So Śukadeva Gosvāmī says, just hearing about the playful pastimes Krishna has with his most intimate devotees in Vrindavan, especially the gopīs, then because their hearts then become bound to Krishna, and Krishna also becomes bound to them. And although Krishna is unconquerable, he's conquered by the love of his devotees. This is the greatest quality of Krishna. He becomes conquered by the love of his devotees. And so in Vrindavan, there's no life without Krishna. And after Krishna leaves Vrindavan, apparently, although mysteriously, or very esoterically at least, he's there in his bhava feature. And the surroundings of Vrindavan are important because the backdrop of Vrindavan is, and the way that Krishna dresses in Vrindavan, the way he interacts with everybody, that's the mood of Vrindavan, where we say God is at home. Probably used to describe Narayan as God on his way to work, briefcase, wears a tie. Nowadays nobody wears a tie. It used to be. People go a little more formally to work. Narayan's working. Krishna, somebody asked Prabhupada, why does he play a flute? Prabhupada said it means because he's all play and no work. First year old. That's the mood in Sri Vrindavan, and this phenomenon is only understood by the pure devotees, for those who come to the path of devotional service under the protection of the pure devotees. That one's heart can be so smitten with love for the personality of God. Just by Shrinuyat, by hearing about this, one's heart can be changed. And as described also in the 11th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, in relationship to hearing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and the pastimes in Vrindavan, second verse of the Bhagavatam says that Satya Hṛdya-Varudyate Trakriti Vishushushi Ishtakshana. This the potencies that when the potency of the topics of Krishna they're attractive even to Krishna. So much so that if somebody's engaged in hearing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam with loving attention, then Krishna is inclined not to leave the heart of that person. Commenting on that, Krishna Chakravarti also quotes Vrishuddhati hṛdayam yasya sakshat dariyaravishad abhihito yagoganasha māyā-mṛgaṁ dritam vipad. He says that for those, even those who hear Hare Krishna, they just say it one time accidentally, says Krishna is inclined to remove all the ugra karma from their hearts. But those who chant it with love, he says, pranaya rasanaya, means there's ropes of love that ties Krishna. He can't get away. So that's the intimacy of Vrindavan Dham. Everyone loves Krishna, and Krishna loves the devotees there. So when Krishna goes to Kurukshetra, and the gopis come, and a message is given to Krishna that they're there, he leaves all other engagements. And you know he has plenty. Everyone's come to see him, millions, and sages. But Krishna's main interest was to meet with the gopis that always was always thinking of them even in Dwarka, separate. He was in separation as they were in separation from him. So that meeting point in Kurukshetra is represented by a verse that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sang at Rath Yatra, combining the two. the Rath Yatra pastime in the 13th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila. It's called Lord Chaitanya's dancing at Rath Yatra. Why was he dancing? What was the mode of his dancing? Sometimes the cart would stop. Sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go dance behind the cart, stay behind the cart, then the cart would stop. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, this competition between Krishna, who's Jagannath, and Radharani, who's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's Radharani staying behind the cart, as if to say, do you still remember me? Do you still remember us, the resident of Vrindavan? And Jagannath's cart will stop. And everybody who's been to Rath Yatra knows the cart just stops. And in fact, it's described there in that chapter 13 of Madhya Lila that during times when the cart would stop, people would try to get it going again and wouldn't move. They brought elephants. The elephants were screaming. They couldn't get it going. Mahaprabhu, he went with his devotees behind the cart. He put his head on the cart, just pushed it, started to move. So it was Rath Yatra dancing. Mahaprabhu went there with all his devotees. He put together groups of chanters. Each group, there would be 2 mridangas, 4 groups, his own personal groups. Each one had 2 mridangas playing, so that makes 4 times 2 is 8 mridangas is a lot. And then he assigned a singer and those who would respond to the singer because they didn't have microphones back then. And then he would also assign a dancer for each group. And besides his groups, there were several other groups that came from other regions. They were all devotees of Lord Chaitanya. They had their own kirtan groups. So if you noticed in New York Rath Yatra, did you notice? It was hard to figure out who was who. Actually, it wasn't that hard. It was hard because it was raining. Couldn't see from underneath the umbrella. But we knew Harinam Ruchi. They were always doing kirtan. And then there were a couple other groups that just broke out singing. Even we did. We did some shlokas together. We had our own group. So it was like that at Rath Yatra with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 3 other groups came, so there were 7 altogether. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing at the Rath Yatra, he expanded himself, just as Krishna did when he was taking breakfast. He was taking picnic lunch with his friends in Vrindavan by the Jamuna. Everyone thought, oh, he's only in my group, or he's only looking at me. He's the Sunoshar of all eyes. And of course, he expands himself in Dwarka too, so every queen thinks he's there. With Balalashma and Śukadeva, when he went to visit them, he also went simultaneously to each of their homes. He also expanded himself into another set of sages. And they all thought, oh, he's come to see me. He's very personal. So there at Rath Yatra, he was dancing. Each one of the groups thought, oh, he's dancing only with us. 2 people could understand exactly what was going on. Amazingly, it was Prataparudra and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. They were very fortunate because of their special kind of devotion for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But especially emphasized there was that Prataparudra is so eager to meet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was an impossibility because Mahaprabhu was a sannyasi. He would not meet a king. Or at least so he said. But Prataparudra came out during the time when Jagannath was leaving his throne and coming onto the cart, and he swept the road, the golden broom. Mahaprabhu noted these. He noted them, that he had humbled himself. He gave him special mercy. There's other reasons he gave him mercy, but that's one of the main reasons mentioned, which is accessible to all of us. So we want to know, well, how do you get closer to Kṛṣṇa? How would one enter into some of these pastimes? Sweep the floor. Be humble. Do some manual service. And during the Rath Yatra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sang song, Yako Mara Parasa Eva Chaitra Shurvas Prabhupada Kadam Chaivas Intata Vichayasirata Translation is, this is the same personality who stole away my heart in my youth. And this is here, the same fragrance of malti flowers is in the air. And also, the same breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I'm the same lover, but still my mind is not satisfied. I want to go back to that place, bank of the Reva, under the Vatasi tree. That is my desire. That was the song Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was singing. It's not a Shastric reference, although it is now, after Mahaprabhu sang it. But it referred to the environment of, literally, translated, it refers to the gopis' feelings of separation from Krishna. Although they're seeing him in Dwarka, the environment's wrong. They don't want to see him as a prince. They don't want him with all those people around. They want to be with him at the bank of the Jamuna and near Govardhan Hill. Those who visit Vrindavan and it gets in them, you see something in Vrindavan and you think, oh, now that's sweet. And you can't get it out of your mind or heart. You see these shirts people wear all over the world. So I've lost my heart in Vrindavan. That's altogether possible. Because it's the environment there, it's the mood Krishna's in there. That's what Srimati Radharani wanted. And so there's this conundrum that takes place right there in Kurukshetra, where acharyas say, well, if Krishna says to them, well, why don't you come with me to Dwarka? And then Radharani will say, Yako Mara Hafasa Eva Hiparas, Eva Chaitra Shabas. Yeah, same everything, but this is different. I want to go back to that place where that shower of love is coming at every moment, the mood of Vrindavan. And so what's taking place there is Jagannath Swami's leaving Dwarka. He says, yeah, to his wife, I'll be right back. Take a little drive. And he's going off to see his lovers, literally. There's the Ganesha temple is Vrindavan. And it's amazing, such a huge festival. And of course, not everybody knows the details behind the festival. And people come from everywhere to see Jagannath, because he's the Lord of the universe. Some Buddhists come, some Mayavadis come. Krishna says in the Gita, Ye yatamam prapatyante tam sataya vajamayaham amavardmanavardante manusha vardasarvasha. However somebody approaches me, I'll reciprocate accordingly. So the Prophet said this is a very feeling festival when one knows details of Krishna's relationship with the devotees, and this is what's really going on. But to speak of the ontology behind it, the Sambandha Gyan, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Vladini Shakti Rasma Ekatmana Bhavi Vedam Katavta Chaitanya Prakadamananata Dvayam Chaikyamatam Radha Duty Samadikam Naumi Krishna Sudama. That Radha and Krishna, God is one, but he's divided himself eternally for his own enjoyment. But now he's come back together again in one as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Same Krishna, but he has the heart of Srimati Radharani and the effulgence of Srimati Radharani. He's come for his own purposes, for discovering to taste, personally taste the same love that his devotees have for him. And according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the most intense moment in the pastimes between Radha and Krishna takes place at Kurukshetra. Because, as one great devotee once described it, in a football game, we're not talking about soccer, sorry. The analogy works better in a football game. The big games, the big game, end of the year, Super Bowl, and there's 10 seconds left. Ball is passed, and the player makes it all the way to the half-yard line, but doesn't score. And then the clock ticks down. And of course, everybody knows what happens during a cricket match if your team loses, right? Go ahead, you can admit it. Let it all out. You can cry on my shoulder later. Everybody knows. I used to live in St. Louis, Missouri. They were into baseball. Kind of like cricket, fake cricket. And in the big games, everyone was absorbed. You walk into a grocery store anywhere and everyone was listening. Didn't matter, everywhere in the whole town. It was all absorbed in the game. And if they won, you could feel it, the wave go through the whole town. If they lost, everybody was morose. And so at Kurukshetra, they're there. Krishna's there. 10 seconds left. The clock's ticking down. The ball is passed. They get to the half-yard line. It's over. And so that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur says is the pinnacle of the emotion of Vrindavan is away from Vrindavan. Because when the separation is felt most intensely, paradoxically, in the philosophy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis, that's when the feeling is most intense. And that's what takes place at Kurukshetra. So besides being a festival where Lord Jagannath comes out to give his benediction to the world, as we see in the West, Srila Prabhupada established it all over the world. But the glorious aspects of the international site for Krishna consciousness is not only we put on a festival that is so esoteric, spiritually esoteric, but we also provide the pramanam, the sambandha gyan through Caitanya Charitamrita. Nobody else has that. You go to a festival, I mean, even in India, if you go to Jaipur, you go to see Shri Radha Govinda for Mangalartik, it's not like they have a bookstall. They didn't have an acharya, they were either a vyasasana. We're very fortunate because this intimate kind of knowledge that we're discussing now comes down through the parampara of pure devotees. So we can appreciate what Prabhupada said about the Jagannath Yatra, Rath Yatra, that is, as he would say to audiences in Philadelphia, Chicago, and listen to all his lectures. He always says, this is a very feeling festival. And he does describe how the pastime of pulling the carts are the residents of Vrindavan. They literally are pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan, or pulling Krishna into their hearts. And anyone can do that. We start with the Bhagavad Gita, just understanding basically who we are. And we graduate to the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which then removes all our anarthas. Nashta praishu adrishu tada rajas tamo bhava. Evam prasana manaso vidyate hṛdayagrantish. There's a progression that takes place through the disciplic succession coming down through Śukadeva Gosvāmī speaking in the Bhāgavatam, coming to the pinnacle. And then we see it in action. The Śrīmad Bhāgavatam enacted by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. With that support, Sambandha Gyan, and the festivals to attend. Otherwise, where else would we be if we didn't have a festival to attend here tonight? Think about it. So this is the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And this few paltry words about the meaning of the Jagannath Rath Yatra. And now we have 10 minutes left, so let's see if you have any question that might fluff out the conversation. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you so much.
You deserve to ask a question. You were listening, so.
Thank you for such a wonderful lecture. It's so nice.
He said he liked the lecture. I'm just repeating this.
My question is, what is the best way to celebrate this kind of days?
What's the best way to celebrate these kind of days? Just doing this. Really nice to invite devotees over, hear something about the pastime, then chant Hare Krishna and have some prasad. This is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's program, and it's deeply penetrating. It's elusively deep. It may look simple. We're just going over to such and such's house, sing a little, hear a little, have a little something, and then our connection to the material world changes, and our connection to the spiritual world becomes enhanced just by hearing the association of devotees. So Prabhupada gave us the Caitanya Charitamrita, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And if we make a study of it, it's at once edifying, purifying, and it's the direct access to the spiritual world, just in vibration itself. Narada Muni says to Vyasadeva, just hear this vibration, you'll flip towards the spiritual world, out of the material world. Thank you. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All the gopīs loves to Krishna so much.
All the gopīs loves Krishna so much.
And Krishna also in the reciprocate that. But why does
And Krishna did or didn't reciprocate? Did reciprocate.
But why does Lord Krishna was not able to come physically over there? Like
Why was Krishna not able to come physically over there?
yeah, back to the Vrindavan. Or not even a single time. Because they were really
Not even a single time. Well, first of all, I mean, I know what you mean by physical, but Krishna is not physical in another way. So, description of how when Krishna left Vrindavan, he's there manifest in his bhava form. In fact, you'll find in this chapter 13, Krishna, when he meets Srimati Radharani, is explaining why he was away for so long. He says, but actually, he says, by the grace of Lord Narayan, I came back there every day. And Srimati Radharani would think, oh, I'm just hallucinating. He said, no, that wasn't a hallucination. I was coming there every day. That's what it means when Prabhupada describes in the Krishna book that he was manifest there in his bhava form. Of course, we're never separated from Krishna. We hear in the Upanishadic wisdom, Tadejati, Tadnaijati, Tadvare, Antike, Tadantadas, Sarvasya. Krishna's far away, very near as well. And the only time we're separated from Krishna by our own consciousness. So because the devotees there were so intensely thinking of Krishna, really there was no separation from Krishna. But the separation and the meeting, as Guru Govinda Bharata explains in his book, Embankments of Separation, they create this tension so that when the devotees are apparently away from Krishna, their desire to be with him is so intense that they experience this spiritual pleasure, which is described by Kārbhājana Gosvāmī. Imagine being bitten by the most poisonous serpent, combined at the same time with having nectar poured on you. Severe bite of the serpent with nectar being poured on your head at the same time. It sounds to the outside world like some kind of madness. That's what the highest level of ecstasy in Krishna consciousness looks like. And in practical terms, Krishna explained that he wanted to divert any of the demoniac forces away from Vrindavan. If he went back there, it would draw attention to Vrindavan. He had killed most of the demons. He explained that to Śrīmati Radharani at Kurukshetra incident. There's a few more. And of course, Dantavakra was the last one who showed up at the gates of Vrindavan, and Krishna immediately transferred himself there. When he killed Dantavakra, he then entered Vrindavan again after that time. And other acharyas explain one of the reasons Krishna apparently stayed away from Vrindavan for so long was to demonstrate the love of the gopis. There's a poem a sonnet by Shakespeare in which he talks about what true love means. It means it doesn't break under any circumstances. The realization of that comes in the pastime of Vrindavan, when Krishna is separated for over 100 years. And there's no fatigue as far as, okay, well, we don't love him anymore, we give up. Now at Kurukshetra, when Krishna meets the gopis again, he gives similar instructions that he gave to them through Uddhava Vrindavan, which were, meditate on me. I'm in every atom. I'm all pervading. And the gopis answered him sarcastically. This is also insider information from our acharyas, because you find in the Bhagavatam, first of all, Krishna makes some excuse. He said, well, Lord Narayan, because of circumstances in the world, we can only do, what we're able to do. The gopis say, yeah, but the thing is, you are Narayan. So what are you talking about? And Krishna says, well, anyway, and he gives this verse, māyā-mṛgaṁ amrita vaipokte chishtya asin matsneho. That's like bhavatīya vārtām. It says, but you've achieved such a level of devotional service never been seen before. But anyone who has this, they're so fortunate that they're beyond compare any other kind of practice, and said your life has become completely fortunate. He also indicates anyone who also followed that same route, which is the basic tenet of Lord Chaitanya's movement, which is following the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. And then the gopis give this other iconic verse, which is near the very end of chapter 82. We'll say, Ahushchate Melina Dhammadara Yogeshwara Riti Vichinkyam Nagada. Samsara Kupa Patito Taranava Lambam Devam Jushalam Imanath Vidayat Sadad. And they're saying, well, anyway, we're just simple householders. What do we know? And all this knowledge is for yogis. And you tell it to them, basically. But externally, if someone reads the Bhagavatam, they'll say, oh yeah, they're just having a conversation. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then says, this is sarcastic anger. Sarcastic back to Krishna. It's like, look at, you already told us before that there's nobody like us anywhere, and now you're telling us to be like the yogis, be like the jñānis, everything's going to be fine. So yeah, we're just attached households. Krishna told the gopis at the Rasa Leela, you've given up everything for me. It's like, yeah, we're just attached, right, Krishna? All we care about is our household. And poetically, Krishna Chakravarti Thakur says that the instructions Krishna is giving them in Kurukshetra, they're saying, it's like the sunshine. It's burning us. We don't give us sunshine. We want the moonshine. And what does that mean? Krishna has a moon-like face. And we want the moon rays coming from your beautiful face. We don't care about meditation. So we try to forget you, Krishna. We've tried so many times to forget you. We can't forget you. And if we ever do meditate on you, we swoon so much that we can't maintain any composure in our meditation. So we don't care about any of these things. We just want to see your lotus face. Forget meditation, forget philosophy, and that's Vrindavan. And so Krishna stayed away for many reasons. He always accomplishes many purposes from whatever he does. One of them was to exhibit to the world the greatness of Vrindavan. Everything points back to Sri Vrindavan Dham, but we can't enter to Vrindavan without Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the greatest benediction and mystery of the Kali Yuga. Kalim Savajayam Vyarya Gunagya Sarabhajna Yatra Sankirtani Naiva Sarvaswarto Vilabhyate. The people who really know what's going on from reading the Shastra, they understand that Kali Yuga is the best age, because although it's a dark age, and although we already heard, it's really, people are really stupid in this age. Anyway, I was going to say watch the news, but don't watch the news. Then said, but by worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a Sankirtan movement, you can enter into this level of understanding of Krishna by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya. So we can see in this home of Bali Mardan Prabhu and Ananda Vrindavan that they've created this movement, and they've invited us all into it. So this is what to do when Rath Yatra is going on in Jagannath Puri, is to have a party. Because in the Hare Krishna movement, we'll look for any excuse to have a party. This is one of the best excuses there is to have a get-together. And that brings us to our next program, which is Bhoga and Kirtan. So I'll hand it over to our MC. Ask them. Sometimes great happiness. Lord Jagannath makes a loud concert with his flute that grows the banks of the Jamuna. He is like a bumblebee tasting the beautiful lotus-like faces of the cowherd damsels of Vraja. In great personalities such as Lakshmi, Shiva, Brahma, Indra, and Ganesh, worship his lotus. May that Jagannath Gosvāmī be the objects of vision. In his left hand, Lord Jagannath holds a flute. On his head, he wears peacock feathers, and on his hips, he wears fine yellow silken cloth. From the corners of his eyes, he bestows sidelong glances upon his loving devotees. He always reveals himself through his pastimes on his divine abode of Vrindavan. May that Jagannath Gosvāmī the objects of vision. On the shore of the great ocean, within a large palace atop a brilliant golden Nilachala hill, where Jagannath resides with his powerful brother Balabhadra and his sister Subhadra, who sits between them. May that Jagannath Gosvāmī bestows the opportunity for devotion service on all godly souls in all contemplation. Lord Jagannath is an ocean of mercy and as beautiful as a room of blackish rain clouds. He is in the storehouse of bliss like Lakshmi and Saraswati, and his face resembles a spotless glow of business. The best of demigods and sages worship him, and the Upanishad speaks glorious. And that Jagannath Gosvāmī be the object of admiration. When Lord Jagannath moves along the road, and his brother Neptune coming, at every step, large assemblies of brahmanas loudly chant prayers and sing songs for his pleasure. Hearing their hymns, Lord Jagannath was very favorably disposed towards them. He is the ocean of mercy and the true friend of all souls. May that Jagannath Swami, along with his consort Lakshmi, who was born from the ocean of nectar, be the devotees of my vision. Lord Jagannath, whose eyes resemble full-blown lotus petals, is the ornament on the Lord Brahma's head. He resides in the lodge of the hill, with his lotus feet placed that cats went out today. Overwhelmed by the bellows of flood, he joyfully embraces Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is like a pool. In that Jagannath Swami, the object of worship. I do not pray for Ajita, for gold, rubies of wealth. I do not ask for beautiful wife, as desired by all men. I simply pray that Jagannath Swami, whose glorious worship always sings, may be the constant object of worship. Lord of demigods, please quickly remove this useless material existence. O Lord of the Yadus, please destroy this solutions. As this is certain, Lord Jagannath bestows his lotus faith on those who feel themselves fallen and have no shelter for them. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. Self-restrained, virtuous soul who recites these 8 verses glorified counts cleansed sins, every sins, virtues. During the Rath Yatra, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu spoke various verses. One of them, Jayati Janani Vasu Devaki Janmavadam Yaduvār hṛd-rogam Sthirachara Vijidana Susmita Śrīlokyām bhavadīya-vārtām māyā-mṛgaṁ. And this verse is in present tense, Jayati. And it's written as a balm on the hearts of those who are feeling separation from the Lord, so much so that they feel, why is it that Lord Krishna came here, performs his pastimes, and then he left. And here we are, left behind. And so Śukadeva Gosvāmī, to assuage these feelings of the devotees everywhere, writes about Lord Krishna's characteristics. Jayati Janani Vasu. Janani Vasu means, although he's the Supreme Lord, he walks amongst the people. He's Janani Vasu, Devaki Janmavadam. And it's said that he's the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. He's not really, but it's said that. Devaki Janmavadam, Yadu Varu Parishat Svaradordirasya Dharma. And then he's part of the Yadu dynasty. And Sthirachara Vijinana Susmitashi Mukena. He benedicts everyone, all living beings, whether they're moving or non-moving beings. And by the beautiful smiling of his face, he incites this very deep love that the devotees of Vrindavan, especially the gopīs there, have within their heart, maddening them in love for him. The key point of Śukadeva giving this verse is that it's in the present tense, which means that his pastimes are still going on. There can be no separation from Kṛṣṇa. And for the devotees, although the devotees feel separation, he's saying, don't worry. You'll be eternally connected to Kṛṣṇa. You are now, you always will be, but you'll especially be connected by hearing these transcendental vibrations of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and going on. Nama rupa charita kirtanana smrityo kramina rasana manasini yoja tishan rajeta nomagi jananga alamnayeda kilabitu padesh sara. Rupa Goswāmī, who's a resident of Sri Vrindavan, spiritual form, says that even as you're in this world, organize your time so you can always hear and chant about Krishna and remember him and perform the other practices of devotional service. It says, Tishtan Raje Tanararagi Janamagam. You'll then become one of the followers of the residents of Vrindavan, or a resident of Vrindavan, who especially attracts your attention, and then you'll come to live in Vrindavan. As Caitanya said, that you should always live in Vrindavan. If you can't live there physically, you should be there within your mind and heart. And it's a famous verse also in this chapter we were talking about today. Śrīmati Radharani says to Lord Krishna that my mind is Vrindavan. There is no difference between my mind and Vrindavan. Therefore, this cognitive dissonance of all these warriors and you being here, this is disturbing my mind because I want you only in Vrindavan. So the other verses that Mahaprabhu recited, and this one is a parallel verse which was written by Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī from the Madhya Lila 176, where he translates for the world the meaning of Yako Mara Harasa Eva Hicharas. That was a secular song, and people couldn't understand its meaning except for Swarup Damodar. And Rupa Goswami then broadcast it to the whole world by writing this verse in which he says, my dear friend, now I've met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I am the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. Don't we need some? It is very pleasant, but still I would like to go to the bank of the Jamuna beneath the trees and forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing fifth note. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. This is the secular verse that Mama was reciting in Rath Yatra. These are the same moonlit nights, the month of Caitanya. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there. The same sweet breezes are blowing from Kadamba. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. And still my mind is not happy here. I'm eager to go back to that place on the bank of the river, under the Vatasi tree. That is my desire. Lord Sri Krishna says, rendering devotional service to me qualifies all living beings for eternal life. Any living being for eternal life. But by your good fortune, you have developed a special loving attitude toward me, by which you have obtained. The gopīs spoke thus, dear Lord, whose navel is just like a lotus flower. Your lotus feet are the only shelter for those who have fallen into the deep well of material existence. Your feet are worshipped and meditated upon by great mystic yogis and highly learned philosophers. We wish that these lotus feet may also be awakened within our hearts, although we are only ordinary persons engaged in house affairs. Prabhu at Rath Yatra also recited several other verses. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, O Brahmanya Devaya, Śukadeva Gosvāmī. And that's the what are the other verses? Om Brahmanya Devaya Gopālaya Namo Namah Jayati Jayati Deva Devaki Chandapado Jayati Jayati Krishna Vishnivam Pradipa Jayati Jayati Mega Shamalanga Komalando Jayati Jayati Prithvi Bharanasho Kunda. Issued from the mouth of Caitanya Mahaprabhu at Rath Yatra. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the Son of Devaki. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the light of the dynasty of Vrishni. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose bodily luster is like that of a new cloud, and whose body is as soft as a lotus flower. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appeared on this planet to deliver the world from the burden of demons, and who can offer liberation to everyone. Naham vipro nacha narapatir napi vaisho the shudro nam barni nachakre matirno vanasto yatirna ikala paravana namde topi bhatu patalayo das. Not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya or a Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, vanaprastha, or sannyasi. Identify myself only as the servant of the servant of the servant, the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopīs. He is like an ocean of nectar. He is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing. With roots. Prayāsam. Yasoyam Krishna Our dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I'm the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant. And I would still like to go to the bank of the Jamuna beneath the trees, the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of the sweet flute playing fifth note in the forest. It's fun to have that.